Hey everybody. So I wanted to make this video real quick for a couple of reasons. First, excuse me, I have a little bit of a cold. I'm getting over it. First, thanks to everybody who's subscribed to the channel so far, and anybody who chooses to subscribe in the future. I put a lot of work into it. Fortunately, I have a lot of people that were patient enough to play full games. Some not so much, but you take what you can get. First, the primer, the Lantern Control Primer over MTG Salvation. I went ahead and I handed it back to Zero Down, the original creator of the Lantern Control deck. I've got a whole lot of college going on. Got a good a good amount of college, and of course I work full time and I have a family as well. So I gotta do my priorities. So I can't do everything plus the channel plus the primer. So I give Zero Down the primer back, and so I can maintain my YouTube channel and all the other responsibilities that I have in life. So that's the first thing. Unfortunately, the people over at MTG Salvation, the moderators, are unable to delete my post here. So I just put primers in the second post, and Zero Down went ahead and just copied everything into the second post, and he'll be able to maintain it from there. So that's the first reason I'm posting in this video. The second reason is this right here. So I wrote this article. I felt like it was about time for it to be written. I wrote this a bit before the bans, but I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, this should be banned, or this should be banned, or this should be unbanned," and I found most of the arguments boiled down to emotional appeals. Basically, their pet decks were being held down, or there was some card out there that would just almost destroy their deck. Say like Blood Moon, or Ensnaring Bridge, or Choke, or whatever. It seemed to me that people, that the large number of people, especially the people that complain, don't understand the core concept of the game, and it happens to be the core concept on which Lantern Control is built on, and why it's so different from almost every deck, because it's specifically built to take advantage of this core concept of the game. This is in the game, whether we like it or not. It is a relevant and crucial part of this game. And really, it's part of any game, and that is our ability, or the player's ability, to limit the opponent's ability to interact with the game state. A good example would be, say, in chess. When you get an advantage in chess, you a lot of times what you'll do, you get like a pawn advantage. You trade down all the way down until you have a king and a pawn, and your opponent has nothing but a king. You advance the pawn, you get a queen, you win the game. When the opponent is down to just a king, the opponent has nearly zero relevant interaction on the game state. So therefore, you win. And the same applies to almost every game. There's the famous quote, the best offense is a good defense, and that's because what you're doing is making so the our opponent has zero relevant interaction into the game state. So if you are able to have some small interaction in the game state, you will win, so long as you have greater relevant interaction. So as I said, I wrote this article. Feel free to go ahead and read it. I'm not going to sit here and read it to everybody. But I feel, of course, it's a good read. I mean, I wrote it, right? I'm kind of biased, I guess. But, so go ahead and check that out. But while I'm at it, so here are some examples, right? And I understand that there's going to be some people that disagree or have alternate opinions, but I'll explain what I mean by this. So let's say Amulet Bloom. A lot of people say that this is a very super linear deck. It has next to zero relevant zero interaction when you're playing it or playing against it. The truth is that's entirely wrong. It has a lot of interaction, and that's why it would be good, because it has relevant interaction in the game state, just nothing with anything you are playing. And it's not that what's interesting is when Amulet Bloom wins extremely quickly, or any other deck that wins extremely quickly, say like Burn or Affinity or any sort of deck that wins extremely quickly before we can have relevant interaction, then it's not that deck that's not interactive. It's us that's not interacting with that deck and allowing it to have relevant interaction and to win the game. So when people complain about that, it's really like I said, a misunderstanding about the game. The people who are losing to these decks have next to zero relevant interaction in the game state, and they're blaming the other deck and saying that it is not interactive. It might not be interactive with the cards you have, but that's because the cards you have in your deck don't matter, and you built the deck that way. You know, it is part of the game. Sorry, you know. And so there are other decks though, say like Jund or a mid-range type of deck, right? It allows the opponent an opportunity to interact, but it does so in a manner in which it tries to bleed the opponent dry, say of card advantage or tempo advantage, of some sort of advantage. Whatever interaction that the opponent might have, then it's less of an interaction, relevant interaction than what the mid-range deck has, or that's a good mid-range deck. That's how it's supposed to operate. So the whatever interaction is, it's as irrelevant as possible. So that's like basically like the mid-range decks, and then you have control decks. I guess the closest real control deck you'll see here is Twin, but you know that's banned now, so that's going to be gone very shortly. But let's say, like I said, Lantern control. Okay, people call it a prison deck. Sure, it's a prison, but like I said, almost every deck, well, really every single competitive deck. The reason it's competitive is because it limits the ability for the opponent to interact in a relevant manner. The greater control you have of the opponent to interact in a relevant manner, the more likely you're going to win. And so Lantern control is, like I said, built upon that. It's all about making it so that no matter what your opponent does, it has next to zero relevance to the game state whatsoever. And it just takes a little bit longer. And it gives the opponent a little bit of an opportunity to interact. They have to be able to interact in a relevant manner sufficient enough to win the game before the deck cuts off any further relevant interaction. Because once it gets to that point, the prison is set up and the opponent loses. So, say like we can go through each of these decks and point out exactly how it does that. So, say Grixis control, just controlling the opponent's ability to interact in a relevant manner. Merfolk is almost like a mid-range deck. It allows the opponent to interact, an opportunity to do so, but it has its limitations. For example, it'll try to cut off your mana sometimes with Spreading Seas, or it'll try to play aggressive enough that it'll win before the opponent will have any relevant interaction. Ad nauseum will try to set up its combo and just go off so that when it does interact, this is it, and it'll try to interact in a small manner before then. But so an infect, that's a great example. It is trying to interact just as little as possible with your creatures in order to win the game. So whenever I see somebody talking about, oh, the deck is uninteractive, or this needs to get banned because they don't like it for whatever reason or another, I've seen a lot of people complaining about Lantern control and saying that it needs to be banned. But the truth is, understanding this core concept of the game is the future of the game. The people who are not able to understand this concept and then adapt their decks accordingly are going to phase out. They're not going to be able to win because I guess this is a relatively new concept. I haven't seen anybody else put it out yet. And the closest that I've seen to it, as far as another deck that is a lot like this in Modern, is that Emiria control deck, which is pretty cool. I like that one a lot too. I thank you for watching, and I hope this was somewhat informative and or entertaining. Yeah, that's about it.